The chessboard of shadows, they say betrayal cuts the deepest. For me, it wasn't just a wound. It was a reckoning. Her name was Elena, my wife of 10 years. Together, we had built a life that felt unshakable, or so I thought. The discovery of her betrayal wasn't an earth-shattering moment, but rather a slow unraveling, like a spider meticulously spinning its web, one thread at a time. It began with late nights that turned into excuses, whispers that trailed off when I entered the room, and an unfamiliar perfume that lingered on her clothes. I might have convinced myself it was paranoia if not for the text message I stumbled upon one sleepless night, a simple, damning message from a man named Victor. It was intimate, explicit, and undeniable. Instead of confronting her in a blaze of anger, I decided to approach the situation with the precision of a chess master. After all, a knight never gallops aimlessly. He moves with purpose, anticipating every counter-move. This would be no ordinary revenge. It would be a symphony of justice, composed note by note. The prelude. Gathering the pieces first, I needed information. I hired a private investigator, a wiry man named Greg, who had an uncanny knack for blending into shadows. Over the next few weeks, he uncovered everything I needed to know. Victor was a colleague from her office, a married man with a penchant for secrets. They met in motels, exchanged gifts hidden in plain sight, and played at love while I played the fool. Armed with this knowledge, I began my countergame. I mirrored her deceit, feigning ignorance while meticulously planning my moves. I started by consolidating my resources. Our joint bank accounts were quietly restructured. The deed to our home was transferred solely to my name under the guise of estate planning. My lawyer, a shrewd woman with a disdain for dishonesty, ensured everything was airtight. The gambit. Setting the stage next, I turned my attention to Victor. His wife, Isabella, was a woman of quiet grace, unaware of the duplicity happening under her nose. It wasn't difficult to arrange a meeting under the guise of business. Over coffee, I gently guided the conversation to her husband, planting seeds of doubt without revealing my hand. The pain in her eyes told me the truth was dawning. Isabella and I became allies in this covert operation, bound by shared betrayal. Together, we decided that when the time came, we would expose their affair in a manner that left no room for denial. The climax, checkmate. The opportunity presented itself at Elena's company gala, a grand event attended by employees and their families. With Isabella's help, I ensured Victor's wife was present. I had prepared a presentation, ostensibly a tribute to Elena's decade of dedication to the company. As the screen lit up, a slideshow of cheerful memories played. Then, the images shifted. Photos of Elena and Victor in compromising situations filled the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd as text messages and receipts of their rendezvous followed. Elena's face turned ashen, her lips trembling as she tried to form an excuse. Victor looked equally stunned, his bravado crumbling in front of his peers and superiors. The resolution, new beginnings, the fallout was swift and brutal. Elena lost her job, Victor's wife filed for divorce, and the whispers of their disgrace echoed long after the event. As for me, I walked away, not just from Elena, but from the life we had built. The pain of her betrayal was still raw, but there was a strange comfort in knowing I had turned my heartbreak into a lesson she would never forget. Months later, I found myself standing at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the vast ocean. The waves crashed against the rocks, their rhythm steady and unyielding, much like the resolve I had found within myself. Betrayal had forged me into something new, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever lay ahead. For while some stories end in heartbreak, others begin anew in the ashes of revenge. The second act. The echoes of vengeance-revenge is a peculiar beast. It doesn't satiate the soul as one imagines. Instead, it lingers, a bittersweet reminder of the scars left behind. But in the aftermath of my carefully orchestrated retribution, I realized that my journey was not yet complete. The exposure of Elena and Victor had been a symphony of justice, but echoes of betrayal still reverberated in my mind. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about reclaiming myself. Anew. Game begins in. The weeks following the gala, I observed the fallout with detached curiosity. Elena tried to reach out to me, her calls alternating between tearful apologies and venomous blame. Each voicemail was a testament to her desperation, but I left them unanswered. Victor fared no better. He lost his job, his family, and his carefully crafted image. Isabella, now free from his web of lies, thanked me for opening her eyes. She, too, it seemed, had found her own strength. But I wasn't content to merely watch their lives crumble. There was one more piece to this puzzle that demanded attention: the collateral damage. My own reputation had taken a hit in the aftermath. Whispers followed me wherever I went, fueled by those who found my public exposure of their affair as shocking as the betrayal itself. It was time to rebuild not just my life, but the narrative surrounding it. Reclaiming the narrative, I began to focus on my career, pouring my energy into a business venture that had once been a distant dream. A boutique consulting firm, specializing in crisis management and strategy, became my new passion. I understood betrayal and the need to rise from its ashes better than most, and I leveraged that experience to guide others through their own challenges. Elena's betrayal had left a void, but it also ignited a fire. I became a sought-after advisor, my firm quickly earning a reputation for turning around impossible situations. Each success story was another step toward reclaiming my self-worth, proving to myself and the world that I was more than a victim of her deceit. The unexpected twist months turned into years, and just as I began to feel that the past was firmly behind me, an unexpected visitor arrived at my office. It was Elena. She looked different, aged not by time, but by guilt and regret. Her once radiant confidence had been replaced by a subdued humility. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," she began, her voice trembling. "But I needed to apologize. Properly. Not for forgiveness, but for closure." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Part of me wanted to unleash years of pent-up anger, to demand why she had chosen to destroy what we had built. But another part, quieter yet stronger, urged me to listen. So I did. She spoke of her mistakes, her regret, and the price she had paid. She admitted that the affair wasn't about me, or even about Victor. It was about her own insecurities and selfishness. When she finished, there were tears in her eyes, but her expression was one of peace, as though unburdening herself had given her a sliver of redemption. I said nothing for a long moment. Finally, I stood and extended my hand. "I accept your apology," I said, my voice calm. "But I've moved on, Elena. I hope you can too." Her lips trembled and she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered before leaving. The true revenge, that day. I realized that my true revenge wasn't in her suffering or Victor's downfall. It was in my ability to rise above their betrayal and build a life that was stronger, richer, and more fulfilling than anything they could imagine. It was in the peace I felt, knowing I had not allowed their actions to define me. Life is a chessboard, and betrayal a test of strategy. While they had played recklessly, sacrificing everything for fleeting gratification, I had played the long game. And in the end, I had won, not by destroying them, but by finding myself. The legacy of Shadow's revenge, it seemed, was not a single act, but a journey, a path that twisted and turned, revealing new truths with each step. Elena's visit, though unexpected, left a lingering question. Was my victory complete? Could one truly walk away from betrayal without leaving pieces of themselves behind? As I pondered these thoughts, life, as it often does, threw another curveball. But this time, it wasn't retribution I sought. It was something far deeper. The ghosts. Of the past months after Elena's visit, I began receiving anonymous letters. At first, they seemed harmless. Brief notes slipped under my office door containing cryptic phrases like, "The king isn't always safe," or "Not all pawns are powerless." I dismissed them as pranks, remnants of the whispers that had followed the public exposure of the affair. But the letters persisted. They grew darker, their messages more direct. "The game isn't over," one read. "You missed a move." The words burrowed into my mind, unsettling the hard-won peace I had cultivated. One evening, as I sat in my study surrounded by the silence of my home, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "I warned you," a distorted voice whispered. "You took the queen, but the board still stands." Before I could respond, the line went dead. A new game unfolds. I didn't recognize the voice, but the message was clear. Someone was toying with me. My mind raced through possibilities. An angry friend of Victor or Elena, a disgruntled client, or even a bystander with a twisted sense of humor. But the unsettling consistency of the letters and the call suggested something more calculated. Determined to uncover the truth, I reached out to Greg, the private investigator who had helped me before. Together, we delved into the origins of the letters and calls. Surveillance footage, phone records, and social media all became tools in our arsenal. What we uncovered sent a chill down my spine. The letters had been mailed from various locations, each one linked to Victor. Though I had destroyed his career and reputation, it seemed he wasn't content to fade into obscurity. He was playing his own game now, fueled by bitterness and a thirst for revenge. Victor's gambit. Victor had gone underground, but his moves were deliberate. Greg discovered that he had forged alliances with people who shared his disdain for me, former rivals in business, disgruntled employees, and even a journalist eager to spin a sensational story. Together, they sought to dismantle the life I had rebuilt. The first strike came in the form of a fabricated exposé, accusing me of unethical practices in my consulting firm. Though the claims were baseless, the damage to my reputation was immediate. Clients hesitated, contracts were canceled, and the whispers I thought had faded returned with a vengeance. But Victor underestimated me. I wasn't the same man he and Elena had betrayed. I had learned the value of patience, strategy, and alliances of my own. The counterattack, I reached out to Isabella, Victor's ex-wife, who had since become a trusted ally. She was eager to help, having suffered her own wounds at his hands. Together, we gathered evidence of his activities, tracing his steps and unraveling the network he had built. Through careful planning, we exposed his lies one by one. The journalist who had published the exposé was discredited after evidence of bribes surfaced. Victor's allies abandoned him as their own skeletons were revealed. And when the dust settled, Victor was left standing alone, cornered, humiliated, and powerless. But I didn't stop there. I wanted him to understand the depth of his failure, to feel the weight of his choices. I orchestrated a meeting in a neutral location where we could finally face each other. The final confrontation. Victor arrived looking gaunt, his once proud demeanor replaced by desperation. "Why couldn't you let it go?" he spat as he sat across from me. "You won, didn't you? What more do you want?" I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. "I wanted you to understand, Victor. This wasn't about winning. This was about teaching you that betrayal has consequences, not just for the people you hurt, but for yourself." He laughed bitterly. "And what about you? Are you so different? You destroyed my life." "No," I replied. "You destroyed your own life. I simply held up the mirror." For the first time, I saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He slumped in his chair, defeated, and said nothing more. The true victory. Victor disappeared from my life after that meeting, his presence reduced to a ghostly memory. The damage he had tried to inflict on me was repaired over time, but more importantly, I found closure. The chessboard had been cleared, and with it, the shadows that had lingered in my mind. But the greatest revenge was not in his defeat. The aftermath. A new dawn revenge had run its course, leaving behind a world reshaped by fire and ash. Victor was gone, his attempts to undermine me reduced to the last desperate moves of a king without pawns. Elena had faded into obscurity, her once vibrant life a shadow of what it had been. The chessboard was empty, and for the first time in years, I stood at the edge of my own life, unencumbered by their betrayals. But even in victory, the silence left by revenge was deafening. What happens when the game is over, and the players have left the field? The void. Within, though my life was outwardly thriving, I couldn't ignore the emptiness that lingered. Revenge had given me purpose, but it had also consumed me. My consulting firm flourished, and my reputation rebounded stronger than ever. I traveled, made connections, and expanded my influence. Yet in the quiet moments when the world was still, I found myself haunted, not by regret, but by the realization that I had allowed betrayal to define me for too long. It was time to reclaim not just my life, but my heart. A chance encounter. One rainy evening, while attending a charity gala in New York, I found myself drawn to the art gallery adjoining the main event hall. The space was dimly lit, the walls adorned with vibrant paintings and intricate sculptures. It was there that I met her, Sophia. She stood before a painting, her head tilted slightly, studying it with quiet intensity. There was something magnetic about her presence, an air of confidence tempered by vulnerability. She caught me staring and smiled, a subtle, knowing curve of her lips. "Do you always analyze people as if they're part of a chess game?" she asked, her tone playful. I chuckled, surprised. "Only when I think they might be a worthy opponent." Her laughter was soft, genuine, and it warmed something inside me that had been cold for far too long. We spent the evening talking, our conversation flowing effortlessly from art to philosophy to life's unexpected twists. Sophia was unlike anyone I had met before, sharp-witted yet empathetic, resilient yet kind. She didn't pry into my past, nor did she judge me when fragments of it slipped through. Instead, she challenged me to think beyond the bounds I had set for myself, to imagine a future unshaped by vengeance, a new chapter. As our relationship deepened, Sophia became a mirror, not of my pain, but of my potential. She encouraged me to confront the parts of myself I had buried, the dreams I had abandoned in the wake of betrayal. Together, we built something new, not a fortress to keep the world out, but a home filled with trust and understanding. I began to mentor others, sharing my story not as a tale of revenge, but as a testament to resilience. My firm expanded its mission, focusing on helping individuals and businesses navigate crises with integrity and grace. I found purpose not in retribution, but in restoration. The return of shadows. But life, as I had learned, is never without its trials. One day, a familiar name resurfaced. Elena. She reached out, not with malice, but with desperation. Her health was failing, and she had no one left to turn to. Against Sophia's advice, I agreed to meet her. Elena was a shadow of the woman I once knew, frail, regretful, and burdened by the weight of her choices. She apologized once more, her voice trembling as she spoke of the years she had spent in isolation. "I don't expect your forgiveness," she said, tears streaming down her face. I needed to say I'm sorry." I looked at her, the woman who had once shattered my world, and I felt no anger, no satisfaction, only pity. Elena, I said gently, forgiveness isn't about you, it's about me. And I forgave you long ago, not for your sake, but for mine. She sobbed, and I left her with a sense of peace. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was closure. The true victory. In the years that followed, I learned that the greatest revenge wasn't in plotting the downfall of those who wronged me. It was in thriving despite them, in finding love, purpose, and joy in a world they had tried to darken. Sophia and I married in a quiet ceremony overlooking the sea. Together, we built a life rich with meaning, one that celebrated the lessons of the past without being defined by them. My scars remained, but they no longer ached. They were reminders of battles fought and won, of a man who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. For in the end, revenge was just a chapter. The real story was about redemption, building a life together. The art of renewal love, when built on the ashes of a tumultuous past, has a way of forging something unbreakable. Sophia and I were not perfect. We were two flawed individuals who had found each other at the right time, when the storms of our separate lives had begun to subside. Together, we learned that building a life wasn't about erasing the past, but about weaving its lessons into the fabric of something new, a foundation of trust. Sophia's past wasn't without its own shadows. She had endured her own heartbreaks, though hers had been quieter, less dramatic than my ordeal with Elena. Yet these experiences made her uniquely empathetic and deeply understanding. From the beginning, our relationship was built on an unspoken agreement. There would be no walls between us, no games, no secrets. We established rituals that became the bedrock of our trust. Sunday mornings were reserved for what Sophia called truth sessions, where we would talk openly about anything that lingered in our minds, worries, insecurities, dreams, or even past mistakes. It was during one of these sessions that I confessed how deeply the scars of betrayal had affected me, how they had made me question my worth and my ability to love. Sophia listened without interruption, her eyes never wavering from mine. When I finished, she placed her hand over mine and said, "You're not your scars, love. They're just proof that you survived." Blending two worlds, our lives were starkly different when we met. I was a driven entrepreneur, consumed by the demands of my firm, while Sophia was an artist, her days spent in the creative chaos of her studio. Merging our worlds required compromise and effort, but it also brought unexpected joy. Sophia's art became a central part of our shared life. She introduced me to the beauty of imperfection, often pointing out the charm in cracks, smudges, and irregularities. "Life's a canvas," she'd say, "and the flaws are what make it interesting." I, in turn, introduced her to the structured world of business. With her encouragement, I began incorporating creativity into my consulting firm, offering workshops on resilience and storytelling. Sophia's influence gave my work a new dimension, helping clients see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to create something meaningful. Building a home. We bought a house on the outskirts of a small coastal town, a place where the sea's rhythm seemed to mirror the steady growth of our relationship. The house was old, with creaking floorboards and a garden overrun with wildflowers, but it felt like home the moment we stepped inside. Renovating the house became our first major project together. Sophia insisted on doing much of the work ourselves, claiming that blood, sweat, and laughter were the best ingredients for a home. We spent weekends painting walls, restoring old furniture, and planting a garden. It wasn't always smooth. There were disagreements about color schemes and how to arrange the furniture, but every challenge we faced brought us closer. One night, after hours of working on the kitchen, we sat on the floor with takeout and a bottle of wine, laughing at the mess we'd made. "This is it," Sophia said, leaning her head against my shoulder. "This is what building a life looks like, messy, imperfect, but absolutely worth it. Expanding our horizons. As our bond deepened, we began to dream bigger. Sophia wanted to open a gallery to showcase her work and that of other emerging artists. I wanted to expand my firm into a mentorship program, helping young professionals navigate the complexities of their careers. We supported each other's ambitions wholeheartedly. I helped Sophia draft a business plan and secure funding for her gallery, while she encouraged me to take risks I would have otherwise avoided. When her gallery opened, it was a celebration not just of her art, but of our shared journey. Standing beside her that night, watching her beam with pride, I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't known was possible. Overcoming new challenges. Life, of course, wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, misunderstandings, and external pressures that tested our bond. But each time we returned to the foundation we had built, a partnership rooted in trust, communication, and mutual respect. When Sophia experienced a creative block that left her doubting her talent, I reminded her of her own words. Flaws are what make life interesting. And when I faced a legal dispute with a former client, she stood by me, her unwavering faith in my integrity giving me the strength to persevere. A legacy of love. Years passed, and our life together became a testament to what can be built from the ruins of the past. Our home was filled with laughter, our work brought us purpose, and our love deepened with each challenge we faced. The cycle of deceit. A second betrayal. Months passed after the storm of Elena and Victor's betrayal had been exposed and dealt with. I had rebuilt much of what had been broken. My business was thriving, my personal life was stabilizing, and I had begun to find a sense of peace. Despite everything, I decided to give Elena a second chance. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe it was my belief in redemption. Or perhaps I simply wanted to see if love could survive even the deepest of wounds. But as they say, trust once broken is a fragile thing, and what I didn't realize then was that her betrayal wasn't a momentary lapse. It was part of who she was. Red flags ignored. The signs began subtly. Elena, who had sworn to prove her loyalty, started working longer hours at her new job. Late-night phone calls and vague explanations became routine. When I asked about it, she dismissed my concerns with practiced ease, reminding me of how hard she was working to rebuild her life and our relationship. "I'm trying to make things right," she'd say, her voice filled with what seemed like genuine frustration. "You said you wanted to move forward. Why are you always looking for something wrong?" Her deflection worked, for a time. I wanted to believe her, to believe that people could change. But deep down, the doubt lingered, a quiet voice that refused to be silenced. An old pattern returns. One evening, while reviewing some paperwork in my study, I noticed something odd. A charge on our shared credit card for a luxury hotel in the city. When I asked Elena about it, she claimed it was for a work conference. Her explanation was plausible enough, but her tone carried an edge of defensiveness that set off alarm bells. Curiosity got the better of me. I decided to investigate, not because I wanted to catch her in a lie, but because I needed to know if my instincts were wrong. I reached out to Greg, the private investigator who had helped me uncover her first betrayal, and asked him to look into it. The truth revealed Greg worked quickly, and within days, he had new evidence. Elena had been seeing someone, a man named Aaron, one of her co-workers. They'd been meeting at hotels, exchanging gifts, and even traveling together under the guise of work trips. When Greg presented me with the photos and records, my heart sank. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the realization that Elena had never truly changed. Her promises, her tears, her apologies, they had all been a performance, a mask she wore to avoid facing the consequences of her actions. The confrontation. This time, I didn't confront her with anger. I waited until she came home one evening, her face flushed from the cold and her smile as bright as ever. I placed the file on the table and waited for her to notice. "What's this?" she asked, her smile faltering as she flipped through the pages. Her face turned pale as she saw the evidence. Photos of her with Aaron, receipts for their hotel stays, and messages detailing their plans. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. "Let me explain," she stammered, but I held up a hand to stop her. "There's nothing to explain, Elena. You made your choice. Again." Her tears came quickly, but this time, they didn't move me. I had heard it all before. The apologies, the excuses, the promises to change. But I knew better now. Elena wasn't capable of change, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. Closing the door. The next day, I contacted my attorney and began divorce proceedings. I made it clear that there would be no reconciliation, no second chances, and no room for negotiation. I had given her my trust once before, and she had squandered it. Elena tried to fight, claiming she still loved me and that she had made a mistake. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. I had spent too much time trying to fix something that was fundamentally broken. This time, I chose myself. A lesson in strength. The second betrayal wasn't just a heartbreak. It was a lesson, a harsh, unyielding reminder that some people cannot be saved from themselves. It taught me the importance of boundaries, of listening to my instincts, and of valuing my own worth above the need to salvage a failing relationship. As I stood in my now empty home, the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Free to build a life untainted by lies, free to surround myself with people who valued honesty and integrity, and free to believe that true love wasn't just a fleeting illusion. The protagonist's journey. From betrayal to renewal. The second betrayal left me standing at the crossroads of my life. Though the pain was sharp and fresh, I realized I had a choice. I could let the bitterness of Elena's actions consume me, or I could use the experience as a catalyst for transformation. For too long, I had tied my sense of self-worth to the approval of others, to the illusion of stability in a broken relationship. Now, I was determined to find strength in myself and create a life that was truly my own. Step 1. Facing the wounds before. I could move forward. I needed to confront the emotional scars Elena had left behind. Therapy became a cornerstone of my healing. At first, I hesitated to open up, but my therapist, Dr. Moore, had a way of asking the right questions. "What do you feel you've lost?" she asked during our first session. "Trust," I admitted. Not just in her, but in myself. How did I not see it coming twice? Dr. Moore nodded thoughtfully. Betrayal often blindsides us because we want to believe in the people we love. That's not a flaw. It's a testament to your capacity for hope. But now, it's about learning how to hope wisely. Those words stayed with me. I wasn't broken. I was learning. And that shift in perspective made all the difference. Step 2. Rebuilding a life alone. For the first time in years, I was truly alone. At first, the silence of my house was suffocating, a constant reminder of what I had lost. But over time, I began to see it as an opportunity, a blank slate on which to rebuild. I took up new hobbies, immersing myself in activities that brought me joy. Cooking, something I'd always left to Elena, became a meditative ritual. I experimented with recipes, savoring the process as much as the results. I also rediscovered my love for hiking, spending weekends exploring trails and finding solace in nature's quiet beauty. Work, too, became a source of renewal. I shifted the focus of my firm to mentorship and personal development, helping young professionals navigate the challenges of their careers. Sharing my own story of resilience not only inspired others but reminded me of how far I'd come. Step 3. Forging new connections. For a while, I avoided the idea of dating, convinced that my heart wasn't ready. But life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. I met someone, Emma, at a charity event I attended reluctantly at the urging of a friend. Emma was unlike anyone I'd ever known. She was witty, self-assured, and unapologetically authentic. We bonded over our mutual love for literature and a shared disdain for small talk. She listened intently when I shared my past, not with pity, but with understanding. "You've been through hell," she said one evening, "but you're still standing. That's something to be proud of." Our relationship grew slowly, organically, without the weight of expectation. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be truly seen, not as a fixer, not as a victim, but as a person deserving of love. Step 4. Defining my own happiness. With Emma by my side, I began to redefine what happiness looked like. It wasn't about chasing perfection or meeting societal expectations. It was about creating a life that felt authentic to me. I moved to a smaller town, trading the fast-paced chaos of the city for a community where people knew your name. I opened a retreat, center focused on resilience and growth, blending my love for nature with my professional expertise. Emma became a partner in this endeavor, offering workshops on mindfulness and creativity. Together, we built something beautiful, not just a business, but a life rooted in trust, mutual respect, and shared dreams. Step 5. Letting go of the past Elenas. Betrayal no longer defined me. It was a chapter in my story, one that had shaped me but didn't own me. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers about her, a new relationship, a fresh start, but they no longer stirred bitterness in me. Instead, I felt a quiet gratitude for the lessons her actions had taught me. I learned to trust again, not blindly, but with a wisdom born of experience. I learned to value my own worth, to set boundaries, and to cherish the relationships that truly mattered. A life reclaimed. Years later, as I stood on the porch of our retreat center, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long and fraught with pain, but it had brought me to a place of profound fulfillment. Emma joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "You're quiet," she said, a smile playing on her lips. "What are you thinking?" "That I finally understand what it means to be happy," I replied, "and it's nothing like I thought it would be." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Funny how life works, isn't it?" It was. Life had broken me, but it had also given me the tools to rebuild. And in that rebuilding, I had found not just love, but a sense of self that could never be shaken again.